motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. Former super featherweight champion Mikaela Mayer said, when they announced second score for Baumgartner, I knew they were going to rob me.
You guys know how I feel about it already. That fight was close and competitive in spots, but it was no robbery.
When they announced that second score for her, I knew right away they were going to rob me, Mayer said to BBC. I'd never been in that position before, so I wasn't sure exactly how to handle it. You think that your life and your story is now theirs, that they'll go on to accomplish everything that you wanted to. Or maybe another scenario is that everything that was said in the trash talk was right and everything I said was wrong. Those scenarios are just running through my head all day long, and basically what happens is my heart just drops to my toes every 10 minutes of the day. How am I going to get through another day of this?
There was no rematch clause in place, with Baumgartner looking at other opportunities.
In truth, Mikaela Mayer has nothing to be ashamed of, losing to one of her contemporaries, another excellent fighter, the same way that she's an excellent fighter, was an excellent champion. There's no shame in it, but because of the bad blood between them,
That's why she's taking it so hard, because they're not just rivals in a professional sense, they're rivals at a personal level.
I've always wanted to put on the biggest fights possible, and this time I came up on the short end of that, said Mayer. But it doesn't change the goal. I still want to make the biggest fights possible. I still feel that's important, and I can't preach that, and then when it's time for me to do it and believe it and walk the walk, I can't sit back and cower. I know one day I will wake up and say, I'm glad that happened. If it didn't happen, I wouldn't be where I am today. Eventually, it turns out okay, and it's not the end. I thought it was.
Mikaela still thinks she got robbed.
There are a lot of people out there, they think she got a raw deal too, though in truth, I can only tell you now what I told you before. Alicia Baumgartner, going into that fight, was the betting underdog with no advantages. No promotional advantage, no home field advantage. It's Mikaela Mayer's promoter that has the existing relationship with the Sky Sports platform, after all. They're their UK broadcast partner.
So not only was Mikaela Mayer the betting favorite going into the fight, she in many ways was the house fighter. At least more so than Alicia Baumgartner. She was the away fighter, the matchroom fighter.
How much do you think the people at Sky would love to stick at the matchroom and screw over one of their fighters? The point I'm getting at is, nobody did Alicia Baumgartner any favors in that fight. She won the fight legitimately, and while it was competitive and close in spots, and at times a little hard to score, the right woman won the fight. Mikaela wasn't robbed, and what she needs to do is go back to the drawing board and get better, come back stronger.
Stop moaning about it.
Mikaela Mayer, who took to her social media and stated, my deal is about 90% done. Can you guess who I'm fighting?
I ain't got the foggiest fucking idea, to tell you the truth.
Or, at what weight is Mikaela's next fight gonna take place? Is she gonna stay at super featherweight? Is she gonna move up in weight? What the hell is she gonna do? Mikaela's tweet had given some rise to speculation that she had swept the rug from under Alicia Baumgartner, and she may have secured a fight with Inoue Choi. To that, Mikaela stated, LOL, nah guys. Choi is faking an injury to avoid unifying with Baumgartner or fighting anyone worthy. Undisputed fight ain't happening anytime soon. Choi is living up to her role as the longest reigning but lamest champion in boxing history.
So it's not Inoue Choi and it's not Delphine Passoon.
We talked about that in a previous video and how Mikaela Mayer indicated that they tried to get Delphine in the ring, but she rejected their offer.
So it's not Inoue Choi and it's not Delphine Passoon. Do we even know at what weight Mikaela's next contest is set to take place?
I dare ask, do we even know what promotional banner? It's not outside the realm of possibility that Mikaela Mayer might have to cross the street for certain opportunities with certain fighters. Her old buddy, Terry Harpier, still reigns as the WBA's newly crowned junior middleweight champion. Mikaela's not having much luck getting an Alicia Baumgartner rematch. Would she be willing to move up in weight and cross over to Matchroom for a shot at Terry's black and gold belt?
I wouldn't rule it out, but for moving up to junior middleweight to fight for one title, why not fight for three? Why not fight Natasha?
Natasha Jonas, who campaigns at the same weight as Terry, but she's got 3 alphabet titles to Terry Harper's 1, and we know that the network relationship exists between Sky Sports, Top Rank, and ESPN to where such a fight is viable.
It's not outside the realm of possibility that Mikaela Mayer would move up from super featherweight up to junior middleweight. In so many words, that's what both Terry and Natasha did. They used the campaign as super featherweights. Now they're junior middleweight champions.
It's not like it hasn't been done before. It has, and, you know, Mikaela Mayer's not getting a Katie Taylor fight. I don't think she's getting a Chantel Cameron fight, or a Jessica McCaskill fight for that matter.
Mayer versus Jonas in the United Kingdom. It's a good fight.
It's not set in stone, but I mean, I think it's a possibility. I think it's a possibility.
I'm just bouncing ideas around. It's just as possible that Mikaela Mayer's next fight is at super featherweight, where she once reigned as a unified champion. We're just gonna have to wait and see who it is Mikaela ends up fighting.
Maybe she fights Ellen Mekhaled. They're both on the rebound. Maybe she fights unbeaten Harima Ayadi. Who really knows?
Mikaela did say that she wants to deliver big fights, and a fight with Natasha at junior middleweight is a bigger fight than a fight with either of them.
We'll have to wait and see what develops.
In men's bantamweight and super bantamweight news, a Japanese publication recently tweeted, WBO accredited Naoya Inoue as bantamweight super champion, ranked first in super bantamweight transfer, and won the right to challenge boxing.
It's a rough translation.
Using sophisticated and secret technologies to decipher the message in the article, it reads, on the 20th, the World Boxing Organization updated the world ranking and certified the 4 world bantamweight unified champion Naoya Inoue, 29 years old, as the bantamweight super champion. The unified champions of 4 groups so far have also been certified as super champions, and WBO can be ranked as the first place in the upper or lower cases at the request of the super champion, and can be designated.
You know what this means? This means what I told you. What I told you Naoya Inoue was going to do upon becoming the bantamweight division's undisputed champion. He has petitioned for WBO Super-champion status.
A status that the WBO as an organization affords an undisputed champion so that he or she can move up in weight as the mandatory challenger to the champion at a higher weight.
What that is?
This designation would in effect allow Naoya Inoue to move up from bantamweight up to super bantamweight to become Stephen Fulton's mandatory challenger with immediate effect. Stephen Fulton, who's en route to the featherweight division.
He's fighting Brandon Figueroa again for an interim belt up there.
Inoue is sure to raise his rank to the super bantamweight division next year, in which case he will be ranked first in the WBO's rank standings and will get the right to challenge the WBC and WBO champion Stephen Fulton.
He's not wasting any time.
I didn't expect him to. That was the real virtue of sharing the ring with Paul Butler, a fighter who many anticipated would get stopped, a fighter who many thought was overmatched, stood no chance against the monster. It wasn't just legacy, it wasn't just making history for himself and his career and the Japanese boxing scene in the bantamweight division overall. The
real virtue of sharing the ring with Paul Butler and procuring the brown belt was in order to secure WBO Super Championship status, so as soon as Naoya Inoue moves up, he can in effect become Stephen Fulton's mandatory challenger.
It gives Naoya Inoue the ability to put unified super bantamweight champion Stephen Fulton on the spot and in the hot seat, to where it's either fight or flight. You're either going to fight this guy to keep your brown belt, or you're going to vacate it.
The timing of Stephen Fulton's ascent to the featherweight division, from super bantamweight up to featherweight, the timing of all of this is not by accident, it's by design. You're set to leave this division at a time when you knew Naoya Inoue was coming very close to challenging you.
The whole goddamn thing. It's on purpose. He's been happy to talk about a Naoya Inoue fight while Naoya Inoue was still down there at bantamweight.
Listen, it's not dissimilar from all the spicy talk we saw from Danny Garcia while he was at welterweight and Terrence was down there at junior welterweight. It's not dissimilar from that. While Terrence was down there at 140, Danny Garcia had a lot of cool things to say about Terrence Crawford, but once he came up to welterweight,
Danny never got around to fighting him. And they made Danny Garcia an offer to take on Terrence Crawford, but Danny thought it was more important to fight Adrian Granados and Ivan Redkach. Danny Garcia, the PBC fighter, the same way that Stephen Fulton is a PBC fighter. Are you noticing a pattern yet?
Is that the same Danny Garcia who very recently admitted to making up a whole story about an offer Bob Arum made him to fight Manny Pacquiao?
The same Danny Garcia who admitted he made up that story so that he could stay relevant, so that people would keep talking about him. That Danny Garcia?
The one who's from Philly, the same way that Stephen Fulton is from Philly.
Are you noticing a pattern yet?
Danny had a lot to say about Terrence when Terrence was downstairs at 140, the same way that Stephen Fulton had a lot to say about Inoue while he was downstairs at 118.
So are you noticing a pattern yet?
These hapless fighters that ain't buzzing, what they try to do is attach their names to more popular fighters that people are talking about, fighters that are buzzing in the hopes to stay relevant with no real intention of actually fighting said fighters. Danny did it before, and Stephen Fulton did it again.
It's the PBC way. It's how the PBC likes to do things.
I'm not surprised. I gave Stephen the benefit of the doubt for a while, but in the back of my mind, I knew this guy's not going to fight Naoya Inoue because Stephen's not worth no money in America, and all the money...
If Stephen were some kind of big draw in America, I could understand there being issues, but Stephen Fulton is not here in the United States what Naoya Inoue is over there in Japan. He's not the same draw by any stretch of the imagination. And even if he didn't have to go to Japan to fight Naoya Inoue, let's say Top Rank decided, we want to do that fight in the US of A. We want to do that fight here in the States. Do you think that Stephen Fulton would cross over to the Top Rank side of things?
No, I don't.
Do you think that Stephen Fulton was really going to do what he had to do to get in the ring with Naoya Inoue? Or do you think that what he was going to do was start up with Twitter beefs and Twitter wars and back and forth exchanges in place of an actual fight, an actual contest?
That he would spend more time trying to shade Naoya Inoue as opposed to trying to fight him.
Come on, we already know how this goes. We've been through this plenty of times. The bottom line is, looks a lot to me like Stephen Fulton was looking to clout chase a more popular fighter than himself in Naoya Inoue, a fighter who is widely regarded as one of the best pound-for-pound fighters in the sport, with no real intention of facing him.
And when push came to shove, he left the division preemptively so that he wouldn't be there by the time Naoya moved up.
He wants to fight Brandon again, a guy that he already beat. And we'll see how many people are interested in that fight, because it's not like Showtime's viewing figures or anything to write home about.
A fight with Inoue on ESPN or in Japan would draw more eyes than a Brandon Figueroa rematch.
Who in the hell was asking for that? And finally, in men's super middleweight news per tweet from Michael Benson, Canelo Alvarez on if he'll fight John Ryder next. It would be interesting to fight him in London. It would be very big. But the truth is, I have not negotiated an opponent yet. I'm focused on the rehab of my hand. See how I feel in January and see what the doctor tells me.
Canelo is maintaining an air of spontaneity and errant mystery as to what exactly he's going to do next and who will he do it with. Will it be with John Ryder or someone else?
I'm okay with a John Ryder fight. I've said that before, just about as okay as I would be with a David Benavidez fight. It's all the same to me.
But not to some others, those guys who like to tell you that David Benavidez is the best thing since sliced bread.
For pouncing on what are more often than not overmatched opponents like Kyron Davis,
David Lemieux.
We've had this conversation already. We've had this conversation before. They would prefer that Canelo Alvarez fight David Benavidez in his next fight, though in truth, there's no way that goes down because David is already spoken for. He's supposed to be fighting his old buddy Caleb Plant in March, whereas Canelo, he's set to be returning to action a little over a month later in May.
On that schedule, there's no way that David Benavidez could be Canelo Alvarez's next fight. Much to the chagrin of many a Haymanite, we're not on the eve of Canelo versus Benavidez, not based on that intel.
Want to cry about it? Throw your toys out of the pram? Do your best, hotshot. If you want to be obtuse,
you want to act like a petulant child, act like a petulant child.
It's not going to change anything. It will have no effect with the majority of the paying public, Canelo Alvarez's adoring fans that make him the face of boxing in this country. Not David Benavidez, not Jermall Charlo, not anybody at the PBC. Canelo, calls the shots.
Deal with it.
Not David Benavidez, not Al Heyman.
Deal with it.
David Benavidez has ample bodies on his side of the street to keep him busy while he waits for Canelo Alvarez to give a damn. In truth, I wouldn't be mad at all if Canelo Alvarez took a sweet time getting around to giving David Benavidez the time of day. As I maintain and have maintained throughout, I don't think David deserves a Canelo Alvarez fight.
Deal with it.
Bitch.
What the fuck are you gonna throw about it, huh?
In one of my previous videos, we talked about the prospect of Canelo Alvarez facing Dimitri Bivol for a second time later on next year, beyond what could be a John Ryder fight, a John Ryder keep busy tune-up fight, a John Ryder bucket list fight. You know, Canelo Alvarez has said in the past that he would like to fight in front of a UK audience.
That he's always wanted to go over there and fight in front of those fight fans. Some of the best fight fans in the world, certainly more involved and engaged than the Americans.
Beyond what could be that endeavor and beyond what could be a John Ryder fight, Canelo wants to run it back with Dimitri. We talked about that in my previous video, and you could hardly interpret a rematch with Dimitri as being a safer fight and a safer choice than David Benavidez. Dimitri Bivol campaigns north of super middleweight. He is an unbeaten, reigning champion in his prime.
Already beaten Canelo Alvarez before. He might beat him twice the second time.
One of the more cerebral fighters with a peskier style in the sport today. A base style that doesn't do Canelo Alvarez any favors. If you ask me, the David Benavidez fight is the safer fight compared to the Bivol fight. David's only out against Canelo is that he's a taller guy than he is.
Nowhere near as seasoned or experienced as Canelo. He's nowhere near as seasoned or proven as Dimitri Bivol, for that matter. If you ask me, the safer fight for Canelo would be David.
Very recently, news broke that David Benavidez has re-signed to Samson Lukowicz, his promoter, which in essence means he's going to stay on the PBC side of things. He's not going anywhere, and that comes as no surprise to me. In a lot of ways, you get the sense that David's just on the wrong side of the street to land a Canelo Alvarez fight.
More matchroom fighters have landed the Canelo Alvarez sweepstakes than PBC guys. I mean, think about it. Daniel Jacobs,
Rocky Fielding, when he was a matchroom fighter, Callum Smith, Billy Joe Saunders, Dimitri Bivol.
And it looks a lot like John Ryder is next.
Looks a lot like David Benavidez is on the wrong side of the street. If a Canelo Alvarez fight is what he's got a hankering for, better still, that's the decision that he made, for better or worse. Not that he's on Canelo Alvarez's radar. Anyway, Canelo, in so many words, means to fight Dimitri for a second time.
And as stated, you could hardly interpret Canelo going back up to light heavyweight when we all know he's not a natural light heavyweight. You could hardly interpret running it back with Dimitri as avoiding David.
David's a fucking nobody.